Silver Tongue Devil here, and if you're looking for a way to trim those times down for this sigil's leaderboards, then look no further. First, a few things you may not know. This blue bar represents the number of enemies left in the level. Once this blue bar has been depleted, it will be replaced with a yellow bar. This bar is segmented, and each segment represents an enemy you need to kill. Depleting this bar will immediately end the sigil and record your time. Know that you need to kill 90% of the enemies on the level to complete your run. On the subject of time, you can see how much you have spent on the level on your offhand, and if you really must look at it, try and do so whilst you are waiting for those long arcing teleport arrows to land. Finally, and very importantly, the profile that you use for this sigil determines a lot of things about your power as a player when you enter. If you are serious about competing on the leaderboard, you want to be very close to, if not at 100% completion on the main game. That's because the only things that are not affected by your profile are enemy density, type, and special arrows that you can find. Everything else is down to how much you've unlocked in the achievements. This includes things like special arrow upgrades, modifiers for damage on headshots and over distance, and not forgetting the amount of life that you start out with or whether you start out with any armor. Know that everything that you are doing within the sigil will not count towards anything achievement related. The long and the short of it is, if you want to be at your best for the sigils, you want to make sure that you've unlocked everything that empowers you in the main game. This does mean that a lot of the advice that I'm going to dispense is going to be based on 100% completion, or as near as damn it. And as far as amulets are concerned, you don't need to worry about them, as they will have no effect on your sigil runs. By now it should be standard procedure for these sort of things. Move swiftly, kill quickly. This is a timed event and speed is a massive factor, and the sigil only ends when you have met the kill percentage target for the level. And although scoring is tracked and earned in the usual manner, it has absolutely no effect on your finishing time, and time is the standard by which you are judged. The lower your time, the higher you'll finish on those all-important leaderboards. Also note that your single time on the board is your best time achieved from any world.
What are you trying to tell me? That I can dodge bullets?
I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to.
And I can tell you that he's not wrong. If you can kill things before they can strike at you or shoot you, well then you don't have to dodge. As you are no doubt aware by now, hitting the quiver select button places the game into slow time. Normally this is a great boost to combat and can be manipulated in many ways. However, during this sigil, be aware that when you place the game into slow time, the run timer continues at a normal rate. Because of that alone, the only time that you want to be hitting that quiver select button is when you actually need to select a special arrow. Also be aware that the process of picking up special arrows also puts the game into slow time. Stuff them into an arrow slot as quick as you can. So how exactly are we supposed to play the game without one of its most fundamental mechanics? And for a lot of you, it's going to be about shitting your pants, diving in and swimming. I've always maintained that to have a good solid level of play in IDU, you need to have a slow game and a fast game, with the ability to switch between the two on the fly. Now your fast game won't usually get much of an outing because it is risky. During this sigil, it's needed, and if you don't have it, time to practice. And as obvious as it sounds, your fast play is just your slow play sped up. Be continuously moving with all forms of motion, and always be thinking about your next move. Aim for headshots where you can, but most importantly try to up your rate of fire, whilst trying to maintain a decent level of accuracy. If you are continually moving, you will often find your engagement range a lot shorter than usual. That should help you keep hitting your shots. And a couple of side notes for this mode specifically, you should have no fear of being hit because you have loads of life, and with certain enemies, such as abominations, a body shot will put them down just as quickly as a headshot. Those split seconds you save every time you snapshot in their general direction and down them all add up and will make your times better.
Thanks, buddy!
though we're going to be playing pretty loose and recklessly, you're still going to need a plan. The first part of that plan would be to pick a level or two to specialise on. For the purposes of this kind of sigil, it's probably either Paradise Lost or Purgatory. Do go where you feel most comfortable and know the layouts. If you've been playing the game for a while, you'll know that there are a finite number of these layouts. However, the order that they can be bolted together in is random. Recognising that layout whilst moving through it swiftly and efficiently and killing quickly is key to good times. Remember that you need to kill 90% of the enemies on the level to complete. Every enemy you miss could cost you later down the track. However, backtracking for that one enemy that you missed or was really far off of your beaten path is a fantastic way to waste time. Always strive to find that perfect balance of killing as much as possible, as fast as possible in each layout.
I can feel your anger. You want this, don't you?
Now let's establish one thing very quickly. Just because it's there doesn't mean you have to pick it up. Only grab special arrows that are useful and that you intend to use. Anything aside from that is just wasting time that you do not have. You really shouldn't be picking up armor or health unless you are literally on death's door. Also know that you can pick these things up by walking through them with the locomotion stick. Remember that every visit to the shop is costing you valuable time. Although the right special arrows can really help you increase the pace, your fastest times will always come from the runs where you didn't have to visit the shop and were able to live off the level. And your best run will most likely come from the time you were able to thrive from the level. Like it or not, special arrows are going to have a massive impact on how low you can get that time. Knowing which specials are key and when to use them are probably two of the most important factors going. However, some of this next section will come down to personal preference, and what you get is massively going to be affected by RNG, hence why we are looking at more than one special arrow. So I'm going to share with you what I would go after, why, and how to use them. First up, let's look at Tempest. A fantastic arrow for what we're trying to do. First and foremost, you get loads of ammunition. It is more than capable of taking out multiple enemies in those long corridors, makes snapshotting and downing enemies at distance a cinch. The damage output is standard whether you are near or far, and the draw strength that this one is fired at is not an issue, meaning that it can be fired very rapidly. And if all that wasn't enough, it'll even hit enemies through walls, ceilings and floors. Its only real drawback is that it is rubbish on Banshees, which is easily countered by not going to Paradise. My top tip for this arrow would be to fire slightly higher than you think you should, and if possible from above, to increase the regularity of those headshots. I think Cupid's Wrath is another very good arrow. The homing is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and also makes it quite forgiving in effective use. And the fact that it explodes, dealing enough damage to outright kill most single enemies as well as groups in this sigil, makes it another very good choice, especially if you are trying your luck in Paradise Lost. This and the ×3 variant will allow you to absolutely devastate sections of worlds. Its only real weakness is when it locks onto enemies that you can't see or that are in cover, causing it to explode harmlessly against scenery and buildings. However, you can often mitigate this by shortening your engagement range. Not so much a tip, but something to be aware of. This arrow's targeting can often be affected by gaze. Looking away from one enemy and toward another before the arrow is impacted can sometimes change its target. And I'll also give Divine Sight an honourable mention here. Not the single variant, mind. That arrow is still hot garbage. Again, because of the homing nature, the 3x and the 5x version can do a lot of heavy lifting. Although not quite as easy to use as Cupid's Wrath, they do have a lot more ammunition. That at the moment is my top 3, and that's not to say that I don't use other special arrows. However, it's those 3 that I find most capable. And finally, the one arrow that I would implore you to avoid that will probably shock you is Cataclysm in all its wondrous guises. Now, for killing enemies quickly and clearing large groups, it's actually really good. Either one of those traits alone should make it a top pick for a speed run, right? Wrong. It puts the game into slow time when those explosions pop off. As I've said previously, slow time needs to be avoided at all costs. Having an arrow that activates it every time it explodes is only going to slow you down.